Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We've got Mike Mazzeo from Legal Sports Report here on the show. You can read all about the stories that we discuss over at LegalSportsReport.com. As we bring in Mike, we'll talk about Texas, whether or not sports betting comes there in the future. But Mike, great to have you back here on NewsWire. Appreciate it. Let's get started off with a story that broke late last week. Rules certainly different in the United States and also in Canada, but given the fact that Jontay Porter played his basketball in Canada, looks like investigators want to get to the bottom of what was going on with him and all of the activity on sports betting as well. Thanks for coming on. Let's start there.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Craig. Happy Game 7. One thing to note before the Jontay Porter story, MGM Resorts International has acquired Tipico U.S. Sportsbook. So that's an interesting story. Matt Waters will have more tomorrow, I'm sure, because that is his beat, but something to note. As far as Jontay Porter is concerned, as you mentioned, Canadian authorities have opened their own investigation. We know that Porter is being investigated already in the U.S. We know his lawyer has said he's cooperating with authorities on that front. And so this is Canada opening up investigation through the Ontario police. And we'll see how that goes. We'll see what they come up with. They decided they had enough information. Obviously, we know that 4 co-conspirators have been charged. Porter actually has not been charged in the U.S., Craig, so that's something perhaps, we'll see what happens in Canada. You don't want to speculate in this case. It's all allegations. But given, the allegations in the U.S. in terms of, the fact he had owed gambling debts and had faked injuries and came out of games early and given that inside information to bettors so they could place parlays over $1 million, those parlays would have won had they not been flagged by the Sportsbook DraftKings and then the Integrity Association and then the FBI, which is doing its own probe. So, I think a lot to unpack here. I followed up with the Canadian authorities today. They said they wouldn't have anything, perhaps until this investigation is over and we see what it amounts to. So Porter, for now, is not charged in the U.S., and we'll see what Canada decides to do with their own probe.
Yeah, and again, 2 different countries handling it potentially in 2 different ways. All right, so now as far as legalized sports betting, this year is going to come and go essentially with very little activity in the United States, with new states getting legalized sports betting. One state looking for a potential legalization next year, or at least having this pass through, would be the state of Texas. We know, Mike, that from the sports franchises, there's been a ton of support for this, but from the legislature, not as much. Where do things stand?
Yeah, Craig, so I talked to the Stars president recently who said, at best, this is 50-50 heading into 2025. The legislative framework in Texas, it's very conservative, very Republican-led. At the Senate level, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has continually been anti-gambling, so it doesn't look like, anything might happen there. Perhaps if Trump wins and Patrick goes into his cabinet, one source said maybe that's the best way for this to happen, but seems like a long shot. On the casino front, we know Texas wants casinos as well. Dallas Morning News recently had a story that said that's also a long shot. Aristocrat, notably, one of the slot machine providers, they had a deal with the NFL to have all sorts of different team slot machines. They partnered with the Dallas Cowboys now for their signage to be in the AT&T Stadium, the Cowboys' home. Perhaps they have ambitions in Texas, but they aren't saying. They have 2 casino partnerships in Oklahoma. Oklahoma, obviously, near Dallas. Texas sports betting illegal. The only place you can go to a casino, if you live in that area, is Louisiana. You can go to Oklahoma. And so that seems to be what that partnership is for now. But certainly with Las Vegas Sands, that group getting involved in majority ownership of the Dallas Mavericks from Mark Cuban. Cuban talking about his casino ambitions to build a casino resort next to the Dallas Mavericks next arena. He's not governor anymore, so we'll see where that goes with the Dumont and the Adelson family. But, there are ambitions in Texas from some people. Perhaps Las Vegas Sands making some inroads, doing something where they're not the outsider anymore. They are a Texas-based company, and that they own the Mavericks. But yeah, a lot of moving balls in Texas. Looks like a long shot, but we'll see, obviously, long-term. There's a lot of stakeholders there that have financial interest in that state moving not only sports betting, but also casino as well.
Yeah, and again, it's more or less a state that so many people are supporting this. It's interesting to see how much, again, a lot of money in that state too, how much money that some of these lobbyists can get together and get this to pass through. All right, so now maybe they're watching the show in Massachusetts, because it seems to me that this is the most likely outcome, I think, for a lot of sports betting operators, unless they get their ducks in a row, so to speak. Is, Mike, I'm reading the story over Legal Sports Report that potentially Massachusetts may have a max bet or limit on their sports betting. And again, if you can't regulate it, this is probably the easiest way to do it on specific bets, isn't it?
Yeah, Craig, and the question is, are we going to have a roundtable finally? They tried to have a limits roundtable. All the operators besides Bally's did not want to go there. They said it was proprietary information. We don't want to do this in a public forum. The Massachusetts Gaming Commission operates in the open meeting law, so all these meetings basically have to be public unless they decide to go to an executive session. They don't seem to want to do that in this case. There did seem some kind of angst on both sides. Jordan Maynard, the chair, Sam McQuillan wrote the story for us as the update said, we want this to be something where it's, done in the proper way, where there's not angst on both parties. And so we'll see what happens here. The operators now seem like they want to have it, but the commission has to figure out how they want to do it. I don't know if they'll have a roundtable, if it'll just be a meeting agenda item. But, this is definitely something they're looking at. We saw Dustin Gauker. We saw Captain Jack Andrews talk from kind of a different perspective of the bettors. And a lot of bettors are upset that they are not told why they're being limited. And so this is a big industry, issue, not just in Massachusetts, but throughout the country. And we'll see kind of in Massachusetts lays the groundwork for other states to kind of go in a similar direction.
All right. And, I think that if other states follow suit here and, some of these operators don't decide to either, get together, as you said, and do this roundtable or something like that, they could be forced to have these max bets. I know they don't want them, but as far as the athletes are concerned and some of the prop betting is concerned, it does make a lot of sense. All right, Mike, great to have you here again on NewsWire. Really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks so much for having me, Craig.